Welcome to the Training Portal podcast, where we delve into the heart of growth and transformation, both personal and professional. I'm your host, Melissa Mostert, and every fortnight, I'll be sharing a meaningful conversation over coffee with industry leaders, innovators, and changemakers who are helping to shape the future of South Africa. In each episode, we'll uncover stories of passion and impact, stories that inspire and challenge us to think differently about development, innovation, and community upliftment. The Training Portal podcast is your source of knowledge and insight, guiding you through the ever-evolving landscape of development in South Africa. Welcome back to the Training Portal podcast. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with Cedric Brown, a true adventurer, successful businessman, and a storyteller with a lifetime of rich experiences to share. From his childhood in the vibrant heyday of Klerksdorp to building a thriving career in franchising, Cedric's journey is one of curiosity, resilience, and the courage to express and embrace the unknown. Cedric's story is as diverse as it is inspiring. He's been an entrepreneur since his scouting days, launching and expanding businesses like Dorigo's, and mastered the art of franchising before selling it to chase his dreams of sailing the world. Along the way, he's navigated triumphs, challenges, and countless adventures on land and sea. Today, we'll explore his life's incredible journeys and what he's learned along the way, and what adventures are still on his bucket list. So whether you're here for a dose of inspiration, some laughs, or to pick up on some valuable life lessons, stay tuned for this engaging conversation with Cedric Brown. Cedric, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It really is such a privilege to be talking to you today. So I think let's start at the beginning. You've mentioned that your childhood has played such an important role in shaping you as you were becoming an adult. Tell us more about where you grew up. What was the type of environment?
Well, I basically lived in every single province in the country, and I think I've yet to find somebody that can actually say, except maybe a bank robber or something like that, But I mean, at the end of the day, due to business and my parents moved around a little bit, we went, but they sort of settled in Klerksdorp when we were at school, and in those days it was like sort of a buzzing community. It was the golden triangle for millies, and then all the deep mines and things like that. And, I had to stay in Klerksdorp because somebody had to. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't exist, would it? Yeah. Anyway, but I had a very normal childhood, I mean, my parents didn't lock me up in a basement or dress me funny or anything like that. But, and we like grew up in a very happy time, well, for us. Because South Africa was sort of buzzing and following the American lifestyle. It wasn't following like the European lifestyle. It was big roads, supermarkets, drive-throughs and takeaways.
So nothing like it is now.
Yeah, no. Obviously, now it's like not. It's evolved in a different thing. Yeah. But you guys, so it was a good childhood, a very warm childhood, and things like that. But obviously, you were always conscious of something different, in South Africa as such. It was the years of refrigeration and things like that. I remember my grandparents. They said they got their first car. And things like that, and it was like really different in that sense. But it started out, and I think sort of entrepreneurially, I had a look, it started out at school, the first things that I remember doing was like selling silkworms, and we used to like grow them and then that sort of thing, like take them in your father's cigarette box. And you like go to school, and my mother was always amazed because we were 4 boys, and like everybody would get like 20 silkworms for the day, and I'd come back and say, if the one didn't die, I would have had 20 cents, now I've got 19 cents, and then like my other brothers would come back with like virtually their whole box full of silkworms. And then I really realized I could sell, and that's, I think, quite important.
It is.
Yeah. And then There was like a lot of things, I think from early childhood, I sort of concentrated, I did a lot of role playing in my head, and I would like imagine myself to be somebody else and things like
Okay.
that. And but not crazy, because I think that you have to like make things available that you
Hmm.
can achieve and things like that. And
It's like manifesting it in a way.
yeah. And my mother was the arcala for the Cubs and things like that. And there was a badge that they had that nobody had ever received in South Africa, and that was the entrepreneurial badge. And like I said, that's the badge I want, and things like that. And so I started a gnome factory,
The garden
the
gnomes.
garden gnomes, yeah, and got a basic a mold from one of my mom's friends, and then I started the production. And then, of course, I realized, you can like
This,
push these things out, yeah. And then I realized, you have to paint them to sell them, because the whole thing was you had to like show what was the cost,
mhm.
how much you spent on it, how much you made, and things like that to get the badge. And then I realized, well, the way you're going to sell two of the same is to change the color of the jackets, and yeah, I think there was a house in Clarkshire in our neighborhood that didn't have a gnome, it was that, so yeah, so that was like sort of
The start.
the start, and that like sort of like once you started making a little bit of extra money for yourself, you realize that independence is quite a good thing, yeah.
So during this entrepreneurial almost beginning for you, how did that help transition you from your childhood to young adulthood, and how did it influence like university and things like that? What led you to even your first job?
Well, I think the role of what financial independence gives you,
Hmm.
and the whole aspect about that, you didn't have to ask your parents, for new tackies, or can I go to do this, is that possible, and things like that. You could sort of self-sustain yourself. And then you realize also very quickly that, if you wanted more, you had to do more,
Hmm.
and that like prompted you to like start doing odd jobs and
It spurs
and
you
and
on.
spurs you on. And I mean, sometimes, we were lucky in those days because there was a lot of companies taking on youngsters to like be cash register,
Hmm.
beating on the cash register and things like that. So yeah, and then obviously like everybody was a waiter at the Spur in my time, that was the other thing, and yeah, and that like led you on to like, help you in your role.
So, who are your role models while growing up, and what did they teach you, especially in terms of business discipline and your determination?
Well, the first job that I actually can say was like a real job where you like,
Mhm.
got UIF taken off and paid tax, was whilst at varsity I worked for a clothing outfitters in Clarkstorp, and then the after varsity, it was like you had to go to the army,
Mm.
and I worked there for a while. And he was going through, he had just bought the company, his partners out and things like that. And of course, I like realized, South Africa was busy changing dramatically in the 80s. I mean, you had a lot of more freedom of
Mhm.
expression, and people weren't wearing safari suits. They were moving into pink pants and things like that, And he wasn't really keeping up with fashion. And then he like said, no, 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 I'm entitled to like get involved and to start purchasing and doing a little bit of my own thing in the shop, which was great because I mean, a person like looks back and you like say, would you trust a 21-year-old, with a sort of a carte blanche to
Mhm.
your checkbook and things like that. And, he also sent me then for further study to Potch to like learn a little bit about discipline in business and setting targets and things like that, which I thought was very brave of the guy, but
We wouldn't do that these days.
no, 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 no. Well, and at the end of the day, it also allowed you like the freedom of your expression.
Mm.
However, it put you under tremendous pressure, more pressure so than when it was your own business, because, you had to make sure that whatever you bought sold,
Mhm.
because very quickly he would withdraw the freedom that you would have had, and things like that. So I was quite lucky. It was like quite easy. Nobody else was like really in that segment at that stage, and it worked well, and it taught me a lot about business and about well, the holistic. And also, he like sort of, you just didn't go to work. I think that to a degree, I didn't just do my job. I would like get involved in doing like the shop fitting and the window dressing and
Mhm.
things like that. And that like teaches you different aspects about the business and way business runs. Yeah.
That's quite an interesting way of putting it. And I mean, from what I know, you worked in a variety of different sectors. I mean, from casinos to clothing.
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest successes and failures that helped shape your current path?
Well, yeah. From this guy, I then joined a sort of a large corporate company.
Hmm.
And I must say that was like quite a difference going from an entrepreneurial business into a big business. But I think it was a great way because they did things by the book and things correctly, and you had to just do it properly. Yeah. Um, and from there on, I always wanted to go into my own thing, and I started a sort of a clothing company, and I think that was really good stuff. It was, but it was way too fast for Bloemfontein.
Oh,
Yeah, and I mean, we had these beautiful stores. They were like really experimental. The clothing was great and things like that. But did we like hit Bloemfontein on the target market? No, there was a section of the population that would like think
mm,
it's like really good, but it wasn't like mass marketing, and eventually, well, that just led to us trading, and you can trade sometimes and not realize you're really actually going insolvent, but it's all good and things like that, and eventually, that was a very big lesson in life, and I'm very happy that it happened because it happened at a very early age, and it taught you everything that you shouldn't be doing. And that was the greatest thing. So, first of all, is you learn your lesson. And second of all, is because it happened so early, you had time to correct it in the long run. You didn't destroy the rest of your life,
mm.
in that sense. Yeah.
You had a chance
Yeah.
to make a change.
And then from there on, we went in at that stage. It was the casino thing, the game of luck. No, the game of skill.
Oh,
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, but we opened up those casinos. We were like, I think we were 24 years old. Yeah, and we made money very quickly. Not Sun City quickly, but like sort of quickly and that sort of thing. And then you like realized, and then the government clamped down on us and like declared it illegal, and you had to like close down by the December and things like that. And then you like also realize that, whilst you make the money, you must bank it and
mhm.
save it and not like do all sorts of
Squander it,
things. Yeah, and that was another big lesson that I learned and things like that. And then that took me through to late late 20s. That's when we started up our business in Kimberley, the fish and chips business, and from there on, I'd learned quite a lot of lessons. I went into partnership with my brother, and I always said, I've been to the school of business, well, the school of hard knocks, if you want to say it, and as long as we didn't behave like that, we were
Mhm.
sort of okay. Yeah.
Then you could make a success out of it.
Yeah. So I think that, in generally, afterwards I realized that kids between 20 and 30, you do fall around.
Mhm.
I mean, you haven't made up your mind which direction really you're going to take. It's the time to sort out where you're going to go, because between 30 and 40, you pretty much have to know what you're doing. Yeah.
So Doritos has become your second chance in a
Yes.
sense. Tell me, what fundamentals did you apply when it came to this business and making it a success for yourself?
Well, when we started out the business, I just couldn't believe that, thank goodness I got a second chance, and at the end of the day, we started this business. I'd never been to Kimberley before. We opened up this store and we thought the taxi rank was around the corner. And then we realized it wasn't operational and things like that. But it was one of those businesses that they just started off well and continued to do well. And I just realized one thing that, you know, it was my only big possession. And
Mm.
because I had the keys to it, I opened and closed it, and I worked 7 days a week, and yeah, so we took the business and basically started, and we just made sure that we stuck to all the fundamentals of good business. First of all is to run the business like a business. I think that we were the only people that I knew that didn't like eat out of your shop and like the tool was your piggy bank and things like that. We made sure that, I think everybody laughed at us because we opened up a fish and chip shop with a computer. And they like said, why are you going to do a computer? I said, you control your stock, and then my mates used to come into the shop and like stand around there. And then when I saw that they were like wasting my time, because they don't realize it's your business and actually that's where you're working. They think you're standing there for the
They think
joke
it's
of it.
just for
Yeah.
fun.
And then I'd like say, would you like something to drink? And they would say, yeah, 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 expecting it for free. And you say, okay, £2.70, thanks. And very quickly, there were less and less mates, and more customer, yeah. And that sort of thing. But yeah, I think that I also realized that the staff, they were spending the most of their day with you, make it conducive for good living, give them environment that they enjoy. Also, I think that, train them well. And I mean, all through my career, we spent a lot of time training people because, it's so difficult for a person to get a job. And a lot of times, people like forget that, that they must train this guy because you're going to, first of all, you're going to need him, and a good trained person will benefit you. But the other aspect about it, if a guy has had training right at the beginning, he can take it so much further in his life. An untrained person just remains unskilled for the rest of his life. Yeah, and that's
Absolutely.
important. Yeah.
No, training portal, I mean, that's the big thing for why our business was started. Exactly that, to ensure people have those types of skills.
Yeah.
So I love hearing about that. So can you please tell me how you evolved your small business in Kimberley to stores, and securing a Gauteng master license and eventually owning an entire franchise? I mean, that's the stuff of most people's dreams.
Well, we started out the business and it was doing well. And then we realized that there was a need for a second one in town. So we opened up the second one in Kimberley. And my brother and I, we were luckily both in the same town. So one was running the one, the other one was running it. But we ran the business as a good business should be run. From there on, we like decided, okay, we had another brother come in. And then we like said, okay, let's go to Mafeking. And from Mafeking, we decided, let's buy the master license for Gauteng, because that would mean it's the step that you would also become a sub-franchisor and you'd get to take part in the royalties and things like that. Well, we moved up. I then, because of my status, I could move quite a bit. I moved up to Joburg and I started opening up all the stores there. And that was like quite a big thing because it taught you how to do multiple stores, and you somehow realized that, that it's quite, if you've got the base model correct, you can duplicate a lot of the things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you must just make sure that you duplicate it properly. Because at the end of the day, everything is worked like in a statistic as a percentage. So you would like say the staff cost would be so much percentage, the food cost would be so much percentage, and you would take probably your best model and then lay all the other models on top of it and see which percentage is incorrect. And then you could quickly sort out which store is underperforming where and which store is that. And you'd always try and see which one was performing the best in a certain thing. And then you would go and analyze how you would move the rest of the company to do the same. Yes, and then from there, basically, we were traveling along, and that's when I sold my share and went traveling. Yeah.
We'll jump back into Cedric's incredible journey in just a moment, but first let's talk about how businesses like yours can gain a competitive edge. At Training Portal, we specialize in customized training solutions that deliver real results. Whether you're looking to upskill your workforce, meet compliance requirements, or boost productivity, our programs are designed to align with your business goals. With accredited learnerships, corporate training, and community upliftment initiatives, we're not just about ticking boxes, we're about creating actual value. Discover how our expertise can make an impact in your business. Visit us at trainingportal.co.za to learn more. Now, let's get back to Cedric and hear more about how strategic decisions shaped his successes. When you turned 40, this was quite a significant moment in your life. What led you to your first sailing trip, and how did that change your perspective on life?
Yeah, well, I say, when you asked me to do the podcast, I had a look and I realized every 10 years I go through a metamorphosis or I just can't handle the next 10 years or something like that. So yeah, we were up in Johannesburg and I had a friend that came up and he said, you've always been speaking about the sailing thing. And he says, I've just moved up to Joburg and I'm in Mozambique. Why don't we go sailing? And of course, we were in a bar. So we had a few drinks and then I said, yeah, let's do it. And I thought, well, I've got this mate, we can do it and that sort of thing. And as bar stories go, they're never supposed to realize, yeah. And then the next day he phoned me up and he said, I've just resigned. And I said, we were just drinking last night. It was just chat.
You weren't taking it seriously.
Yeah. And then he said, no. I've resigned and you said, and that's
Oh, wow.
And then obviously I said, but I have to exit what I've got and make this big decision. And then basically, none of us I'd had some sailing experience from Clarksop Sea Scouts and with mates down in Langebaan and things like that. He had never got onto even a rubber duck. So we went down to Durban and then I sourced a boat. And so we prepped it and we carried on prepping it and carried on prepping it and carried on prepping it. And eventually we spoke to one guy and he said, out of everybody that he's seen, coming down to do the same thing, he said, we probably the guys that has got to the furthest and he's actually going to do it. Because there's a lot of people that have ideas.
But it never comes to fruition.
Yeah. And then I said to him, Rob, actually, we're not ready yet. We must do this. And then he says, you'll never be ready for anything. You just sometimes have to go and do it. And he says, along the way, you will then
learn.
You'll learn. Well, obviously you have to learn how to do the first storm, but then you'd finish the boat, you would do that, but you have to set sail, and and that was quite an important lesson to learn, because at the end of the day, you can say a lot of things, but sometimes you have to go, and that was that. And when we sailed, the other big thing that happened to us was we arrived in Cape Town and the laws of the country had changed, and that you had to have slightly more license than what we had from the 1st of January to set sail. And so we realized, well, then we're going to have to set sail before that, and we took a gap in the weather and it wasn't the right decision, but we hit the tremendous storm 3 days out, just off the coast of Namibia. And I remember looking on the chart, because those days there were no such things as GPSs and chart plotters. You had this huge, massive chart, and we were 350 nautical miles from the closest shore. And so I like sat over there and I like saw the storm brew and the storm brew, and it got bigger and bigger, and eventually it was on top of us. And like the whole time I thought, I hope it happens in Jean-Pierre's shift and not in my shift. And when I got out there, I realized it was my shift. And
Oh,
I went down there and I like said, yo, it's happening. The big story is that it was like probably the worst storm that we had ever gone through. Even still today, it was the biggest storm. I think the winds were over 70 knots at some
oh,
stage.
wow.
The sea pushed up and things like that. And yeah, I think we prayed constantly that we wouldn't drown and things like that. Because I'd made a bit of changes to the rigging and I wasn't
Mhm.
sure if it would withstand things and things like that. But we sailed out of it. And then I realized that if you go through the worst storm in your life, anything else, if you've managed to survive that, anything else after that is nothing. You should be able to handle it
Mhm.
because you've been through that. And then so you like put up your resistance level, if I could say, and like, you know, and then you just realize, well, everything you feel safer, feel
Mhm.
safer, you can do things and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Before we continue with the rest of the interview, here's a quick look at how Training Portal empowers individuals and businesses through skills development.
At Training Portal, we are proud to be a leader in skills development consulting and a multi-accredited training academy committed to solving your unique challenges through innovative and cost-effective solutions. Whether you are looking to enhance your team's skills, comply with industry regulations, or maximize your BEE scores, our extensive range of over 300 short courses and more than 30 fully accredited qualifications cover all your needs. From agriculture to information technology, our CETA and QCTO accredited qualifications are designed to provide comprehensive learning experiences. We tailor our training programs to fit your specific requirements, ensuring maximum benefits within your available resources. Our innovative learning platform allows for flexible, self-paced study, available both on-site at your premises and through our Training Portal campuses all across South Africa. With Training Portal, you achieve more than your training outcomes. You gain a partner who stands by you from the initial consultation through to the continuous management of your training program.
Now let's get back into the episode.
What other lessons did you learn with life on the sea?
Well, it was like a really great time of my life. That first time that we went, you know, it was like the Caribbean. That I did realize is that we have strayed so much from really who and what life is, you know, and suddenly because you were like traveling around, you realize that, you know, that birds actually can have expressions on their faces. And I don't think people like realize that, you know,
I didn't realize
you
that.
know, and like eventually, you know, a bird sits over there and you can like look at it, you know, and you suddenly start hearing different noises and you become so in tune because I think that in the world, you get such a lot of gray matter, you know, you got billboards saying drink that, eat that, you know, and that sort of thing, that you actually don't see the sky, you know, and you've got so much radio, you got so much this, you got so much that, that you don't actually listen to what is outside. And all of a sudden, you also realize that you got so much different things occupying you, like television, this, that you forget to be able to entertain yourself. And you have to be able to sort yourself out and be at peace with things that is in yourself to like understand the world and yourself. Yeah.
You've done a lot in your life. I mean, beyond just the sailing, you have tackled motorbiking, hiking, exploring, the works. In your
Yeah.
opinion, what defines an adventure for you? What motivates you to take on all these challenges?
Well, you know, I think that I once read the great thing in Alicante, and it was like the saying, and I couldn't believe it because it like really stupefies everything. And it said that if your dreams aren't big, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And I thought about it, and I like really thought in life, in business, in anything, a person that doesn't have a goal is already like just plodding along and not doing something. So you're supposed to set yourself a target, a goal, a dream, whatever you want to call it. But you must also realize that it has to be a challenge to who you are. Because if that dream or goal does not scare you a little bit, okay, then it's not worth anything. But I also have to go on the other side and I say, you must be careful not to make your goals and ambitions completely unattainable, because you have to be able to get them. And once you get them, you can go for the next one, the next one, the next one. And that was it. So since I can remember, I've always written down, what I want to do, and then I would like tick them off, tick them off, tick them off, and so you would add to the list, and so you'd also like realize, well, I can't do that, because I, this and that, and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's good to like have a direction that you're going to follow. So when I turned 40 overseas and we were busy sailing, then we purchased the business back, and that's when we came back and took over the franchise. And then that was a new era between 40 and 50, whereby, new goals were set, because I remember sitting in Los Aves and saying to Jean-Pierre that stage, and I said, I finished everything that I wrote down and I've ticked them all off. And he like said, yo, you're quite lucky. I said, yeah. So the only way I could really reboot myself is to go back and make a new list, and that's where we bought over the entire franchise and we took over certain other franchises and built the next stage of your life, which is between 40 and 50. Yeah.
You, of course, eventually sold your businesses. What was the thought process in making that decision? How did you manage that transition to this new chapter?
Well, when we purchased the one business, we had a partner that joined us, and he turned around and he like said, so what is our exit strategy? And we'd never heard that word, because in your life, as you like just trying to get to the end, you never think that it's going to end sometime, and you actually have to think about how you're going to get out. And we like said, but we haven't bought the business yet. And he like said, it depends on how you're going to exit it, is how you're going to run it. And then from there on, it suddenly dawned on us, we're not going to grow old in this. And you're either going to you have to have a succession plan, whether it be your kids taking over, whether you sell it, or whether ever. And that is where we started looking and focusing on how we would develop the business for eventual exit. We were just lucky that at that stage, that somebody was interested, and then they purchased part of our business. And, we were at that stage, because we were planning exit eventually, the business was running well, it was running profitable. We had like sort of worked out how to like extend it and to create value for the next person. And unfortunately didn't realize for them, but for us it was how we like did that. And we've recently exited out of the other business. And I think that invariably you're gonna have to exit what you're doing, whether you retire, whether you move on or whatever. And a person has to make sure that you can either exit properly or you just have to close down, and one is really not worth it. Yeah.
So, what's next on the horizon for you? What new adventures or dreams are you planning to pursue now?
Yeah, well, the big story, yeah, I turned 60 last year, and
So it's the next 10 years.
yeah. And I'd look back on what I'd done between 50 and 60, and it was also sailing and walking and motorbiking and things like that. And then you also realize, there comes a time in your life where you also have to make sure what you do that you don't break yourself, and so I made a new list, and slowly I will start ticking them off and seeing what is important to me. I'm very fortunate that I can travel and that I have the ability to go wherever I want to. I also make sure that, and the aspect about it is that I'm not like, I can still camp and I can still do all the cheap stuff. So, I can afford to do slightly more travel than other people, that's the benefit.
So Cedric, if any of our listeners are wanting to follow you on your next adventure, can they follow you?
Well, I'm on like Instagram and things like that, yeah. So, I just post, I don't really post for people or things like that. It's more I post for myself, and it's a way that I store my photographs and my memories and things like that. And it's just a way of keeping in touch with people. I've never thought of doing anything specific about that because, what you do is for yourself, and I don't know how much interest is for anybody else. Yeah.
But Cedric, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure listening to your stories
Yeah.
and hearing about your adventures.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
So thank you.
Next time on the Training Portal podcast.
See more of is micro learning and even nano learning, having learning available just in time, right? I need to do this task now. Okay, give me the information I need to do this, because I'm sure you've also experienced this. You can get overloaded with information and then you think, okay, I'll read this later when I get to it. But then when you get to that step, you just forget. You're still overloaded. So, I think that's something that we can maybe look at. And especially once again, within the South African environment, everyone is going on about tech, but we still have people who can work with their hands. Like that's their natural talent. And we shouldn't disregard it because we're moving into this tech revolution.